So now for sketching V from the BTS musical band, our main focus will be on, and this first part will be on the hairs. The main difference between the previous parts of my sketches, just like I've sketched more than 250 300 sketches, the main difference between those all sketches and this portrait is that he is having golden hairs, and the main difference is that while making any black, brown or blue or any darker value of hairs, it is little bit easy because if you can focus on your hairs, there are millions of hairs and it is nearly impossible to sketch every hairs on your head or your portrait. But there were techniques like I have used charcoal pencils as a base layer, then hard second layer and third layer as charcoal pencil, and it was looking totally good and shining too. But main difference between a lighter hairs like white hair, golden hair or any other hairs which are little bit lighter in color, and the main difference between those both is that while making lighter hairs it is more difficult because the ivory sheet or the drawing sheet that we are using is totally white and the pencil we are using is also light. So while making sketching any portraits which is having a little bit highlighted or a white color on their hairs or any faces or any other things, it is little bit more difficult. So in this portrait I have used a technique that I have used in every part of skin texture, which is base layer, first layer and third layer. I never use this three type of method on hairs because I have always used graphite pencil or charcoal pencil which are more darker values like 6B or 8B into the hairs and just making shiner values. But the difference between those sketches and this sketch is that I want to make more highlight, and that difference between the sheet which is totally white and the hair should look easily while sketching or while capturing my picture in the end. So for making those difference I am using 2H pencil, and you can also use 2B pencil. I have also used 2B pencil for a base layers. So just see where the directions of hairs are going. Like in the center, the direction of hairs are coming from straight upwards to downwards like straight, but on the left side and right side the hairs are little bit curving in the end. So you have to focus where the details are going, or if you can focus more on the right hand side of the hairs, there are more volume, but on the left side it is little bit less volume. Or what I mean about saying volume is that those are little bit thicker hairs, or there are more shadows on the right hand side but not on the left side. So focus on those parts first which are the lighter and shadowed ones. Now for the second layer I will recommend that first go for a basic blending. I will not recommend you to use tissue or blending stump or any other blending measurements or any other things that you use while blending any other portraits. I will recommend using a makeup brush which is the softest one, because if you will focus on the hairs which are totally highlighted, if you can see that totally smaller parts are a little bit more darker. Not every part are darker, but small parts are darker too. But to make those parts a little bit more darker, it is more difficult to make those every hairs. And if you go for making every hairs visible, it will be more than 6 to 7 hours for making every hairs possible. And if you have patience, you can go for that too. I have made sketches in previous parts which are more time consuming as compared to this sketch, because those were a little bit more darker and I have to give more time to them. But this sketch is a little bit different because it is having not more details as compared to those parts. Now using a makeup brush which is the softest one, I am just blending every part of hairs, but keep on focusing that don't apply more pressure while blending using your makeup brush, because if you will apply more pressure, your details of the hairs will be not visible. And if you want more details from your sketches, you have to apply your blending easily, like it is a blonde or golden color on the hairs, so you have to blend wisely or using your makeup brush only darken or only blend the parts which are more darker, but don't leave the parts which are totally highlighted also. Use less pressure on those parts. Now I will recommend that use a 3B pencil or a 4B pencil and see where the little bit more darker values are, like a part which is above hairs, which is little bit more darker. So just darken those smaller parts using 4B pencil and keep on focusing where the darker parts are, because if you will apply the 4B pencil on every part of your sketches or your hairs, it will look totally weird and you don't want that, right? So focus on the darker parts like left hand side of the ears, upside part of the ears, then center part, little bit center part, and left side, upper part of the left side, which is hairs, a little bit curving and making shadows on the upper part. So focus on those parts, use 4B pencil and apply little bit more pressure so that it looks totally dark. Now for blending them, use a little bit darker or hard makeup brush and just blend the parts which are darker. Now using a mono eraser, make those highlights, but most of the people don't have mono erasers. But I will recommend that if you don't have mono eraser, buy one, because if you will use your erasers and cutting it using a blade and making those pointers like I have used in previous parts also, like I was cutting my rubber into a smaller line part and then I was using on my sketches. But the problem with that technique is that after making 2 or 3 strokes, it is totally flat and I have to cut those earbuds, or you can also say that the ears buds in the main part, which is cutting part, and using on the same technique using erasers is little bit more dark or more harder. So using those same technique on this part also, it is not possible. So use mono erasers, which is less time consuming and it will give you more perfect and more easy values of your highlights, and it is more easy to use. Now using a mono eraser, just highlight the parts which are more lighter or the parts which are more whiter, more brights, or the parts which are less shadowed, like the upper left side part was more shadowed but the downside part is little bit more highlighted. So use mono eraser on the parts which you see highlighted. Just keep on focusing on your main part, which is the highlighted part. Don't highlight every part, because if you will highlight every part of the sketch, it will look totally like a drawing, but it will not be differentiated from your paper, which is totally white and blondie or the main golden color, which will not be visible easily. So focus on these two things and your sketch will look totally beautiful. Now just darken the parts using 4B pencil which are totally dark in the end, like finishing your sketches, like the upside part of the ears on the both hand sides and the directions of the hairs on the upside part of hairs. So keep on focusing on these two techniques and your heads like golden or any highlight color will look totally beautiful. So keep on this technique easily, or use mono eraser. If you don't have mono eraser, there is a technique that I have used before also, like using your pencil for making those highlights, but this technique will consume your time a lot. So that was all for this tutorial. If you have learned something from this video, subscribe and drop a like and comment down your question and queries regarding this tutorial. Meanwhile, take care of your loved ones too. Have an artistic day. Tattoos.